Hello and welcome to the Revit online course. In this lesson, which is lesson 7, we are going to be briefly introducing ourselves to V-Ray. So before then, in the previous lessons, we have learned how to create floors, walls, to input windows and doors, to make curtain walls, then add railings, place some components in the building, add some trees and shrubs and grasses. So now in this lesson we are going to, before I introduce V-Ray, I want to quickly show how you can add grasses or shrubs to your components even without downloading online. Revit has some preset components you can use without going online. So let me quickly show that. For instance, if I don't have this edge available, I can simply come to NGL, then I would come to component, place a component. I can add any tree of my choice. So what I would do is I would select this tree and I will come to edit type. So once on edit type, I can duplicate this and I can rename that to be shrub. Okay, then I can change the height. I don't want the shrub height to be 6 meters. I want that to be probably 900. Then I will come to render appearance. I would come to class. I will search for shrubs or shrubs and grasses. Then there are several shrubs that could be used here. So probably I would select I think I like this private, so select that and OK. Then I can decide to change the render appearance from here. This is how it would look, so OK, and here is the shrub. Move this around and come to 3D to check how that looks. The shrub looks like it is floating. That means I have to change the work plane. So I'll select it, then I will come to the level and I can change that to subfloor. I want it to start from there. Now select. If I come to this little box, that's the visual style, I can change this to realistic just to check how the shrub is looking. So here is the shrub. I think I like this, so I'll select that. It seems like it is floating. I can decide to change the elevation from level to probably minus 300. Okay, that means it wasn't floating the other time. Okay, it's not floating. Select that and just move it properly. Looks like it was too close to the wall. Yes, now select it and copy it all around. Copy it as much as possible. This and copy. Now we have the shrubs sitting pretty. So these are the shrubs. So once I don't have this kind of edge on my file, I can use the Revit presets one and I have my beautiful shrubs on my garden. So now moving on, let's quickly check out the V-Ray. The view, select V-Ray. You are going to have to enable V-Ray because before you can have access to all of these tools. So once I click on enable V-Ray, that would load for some minutes. Yes, now we have access to this, and the first thing here is the current view. That is the view for rendering. So once I click on this, I can decide to choose any view I have available. So let's choose the 3D view. Then I come to the render production. If I click on this drop down menu, I have the render production, the render interactive, start V-Ray vision, render in QoS Cloud and connect to QoS Vantage. The render production is for when you are ready to render. So once you click on the kettle, you are ready to render. But the render interactive is when you are still making changes to the model and you are just trying to render and see how it would look before you decide to render completely. The start V-Ray vision window, it starts a live section for you, while the render in QoS Cloud, it is used to render when you have other designers working on the same project, and you will decide to render, together, kind of. So then also the connect to QoS Vantage, it exports the scene to be rendered in QoS Vantage. So that's online as well. So also we have the show or hide frame buffer. If I select on this, it is going to show the render frame buffer. So this is the V-Ray frame buffer, and if I select on that again, it would hide it. So also we have the quality. If I click on this drop down menu, we have low, low plus, medium, medium plus, high, then high plus. So the higher the quality, the better the output. So also we have the resolution. If I click on this, it shows the aspect ratio that would be used. It shows if you decide to click on custom, that means you're going to input the actual aspect ratio you want, or you decide to click on widescreen and all of that. So also we have the DPI. The higher the DPI, the better the quality of the rendering, like that. So also we have this artificial light. That's when we have artificial light in the model, like ceiling light, wall light. So if I click on this, it will activate them and they will show in the rendering. We also have the V-Ray sun, the dome light, and the no light. The V-Ray sun is like the automatic V-Ray sun that will be added to the model. It serves as a lighting means for the model, while the dome light is more like an HDRI. It's like a sky that would be added to the model, and the no light turns off all the environmental lights in the model. So we also have the asset editor and the appearance manager. These two works hand in hand. The asset editor is where the materials are being placed. Once you click on this and this, you are going to be able to edit material. We still work more on that in the next tutorial. So while the appearance manager is where the already pre-existing model materials are. If you remember our wall, the 225 mm wall material, so you have to convert all these Revit materials to V-Ray materials before you can render. You can decide to leave them without even converting, but it is better when you use a V-Ray materials. You'll be able to make changes to the materials once you want to render. So those are and also the families and then the components in the model, you can also change their materials as well. So we have this QoS Cosmos. The QoS Cosmos is like an asset browser where you can download various assets, components, and the likes, like trees, shrubs, chairs, tables, cars, and everything that you need for the model to look realistic. Also we have the exposure value. That's how bright or dark you want the rendering to look. So you can decide to use the standard, and you can even increase the exposure as you like. You can tweak it as you like. So also the effects are here, how you want the exposure to look, can change them and tweak them here. So we have the settings. That's the V-Ray settings. The first one is the renderer. That's engine. We use CPU to render most of the time, except if you have an additional rendering engine on your computer. So the sampler to be used is the progressive, and here we have global illumination. We most of the time use brute force. Some people could use a radiance map. So it depends on how strong the laptop is, the laptop you are using. Then we have this GI depth. I mostly put it on 10 and the ambient occlusion on 1.1. So the interactive settings is for when you are doing the interactive rendering. So the optimization as well, not so much to trick around here. the geometry tessellation, you can decide to take that to the highest, and take that to the highest quality. Then the autosave, this autosave is mostly used when you want to batch render, when you are doing batch rendering. You can also use it when you are doing just a single render as well, but for batch rendering it is very important and compulsory, because if you do not autosave, it could delete the first rendering and it will start another one. So once you have autosaved, so the first rendering it has done, it will save it for you even when you are not there, and it will start another rendering. So this is the path where the file would be saved on your computer. And this is the file type. You can decide to save in any of these file type. So also the image option, this no alpha, include alpha, separate alpha. This is for when you decide to take your rendering to Photoshop for more edits, so you can decide to include alpha, or you separate the alphas when you want to edit that in Photoshop. So also let's move to channels. You usually select standard and additional. If you have additional settings on your PC, so this denoiser too should be checked once you are about to go for render production. You don't need to check it when you are doing the interactive rendering. Yeah, you don't need to check it when you are doing interactive rendering, but once you are ready for the render production, you have to check it, so as to give you a better denoised output. So I usually use the NVIDIA AI denoiser. It is much better, and you can decide to show the denoiser results once it is rendering, to compare from how it was without being denoised to how it is after being denoised. So also the Z depth, that's when you are the distance from the camera, then the extra texture that you have in the project. Also the lighting analysis. The lighting analysis is when you have artificial light in the models, how you want them to look. Also the light mix does that too, so you have to check them as well. So this is for the environmental light, that's the various one, the HDRI and the likes. While these parts and sharing, I don't usually touch so much around there. There's really nothing to touch, as well as the swamp, since we are not using various swamp. So then the licensing, that's all for various settings. Then also when you need an help online, you can just connect to chaos groups official website. And that will be the end of today's video, so as not to be too long. We are going to move ahead in the next tutorial. We are going to start using each of these two in the next tutorial. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye.